Hi guys, my name's Matthew Scott. I write for EDF, and you can follow me at Matt Advice NFL and EDFFZ Pod for the EDF Fantasy Pod. I want to come to you guys with fantasy players to look at and monitor in deep leagues of 12 plus fantasy teams. So I want to start off first of all with Amon-Ra St. Brown, San Francisco 49ers, Detroit Lions this week. Bashard Perryman was cut, now played for the Bears. Terrell Williams has got an injury history. And we know that Jared Goff is the new QB in a trade from Matt Stafford going to the LA Rams and Jared Goff going the opposite way. So why I think this guy is somebody he's been picked up in some leagues, other leagues that there's a bit of uncertainty because we don't know if we trust the Detroit Lions yet. But Amon-Ra St. Brown will be the second most targeted player on that team behind TJ Hockenson, who we know is one of the top 5 tight ends in the league. So Jared Goff, in the last 3 years at the Rams, averaged 579 pass attempts a season. He's going to a Lions offense that's not great. He's going to a running game that's not great. We know Antonio Gibson is going to be involved in the passing game and the running game. And we know Jamal Williams has been a good backup to Aaron Jones. But do we know if he's a workhorse back that can take over? And I think that's where the uncertainty lies. But I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Jared Goff throw the ball more. And could we see 620, 630 pass attempts this year? I think that's not out of the question. And we know his favorite targets in terms of Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Both saw over 120 targets over the last 3 seasons. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is a guy that you need to have on your radar. Or if you want depth on your bench, he's a guy you need to stash just to see how he works out, especially he's working the kinks out, learning the game. And by mid-season, I can see him being a threat and a guy that can put up strong wide receiver 2 numbers. Trey Sermon's the other guy as well. We know Raheem Mostert is the guy. We know that the last 2 or 3 years, he's really taken off. And I think at the moment, Trey Sermon has an opportunity to have a bigger role with the fact that Wayne Gallman was released and now plays for the Atlanta Falcons, backing up Mike Davies. There's lots of potential running the ball. Jimmy Garoppolo is a good game manager, but he's not going to win the game throwing the ball. And we know Trey Sermon was good out the backfield, but also he's got good hands as well. So he's a guy that I wouldn't pick up now, but seeing how that evolves, does he have enough snaps early on? And Jeff Wilson Jr., we know, is out for 4 to 6 months. So I think this is a guy that can shock people. But what I would do is I'd give it a couple of weeks just to see how he plays out. But make sure you've got an interest and you're monitoring if there's interest in from other guys as well. Josh Reynolds, I've been a big fan of for the last 2 or 3 years. Yet again, guy that left the LA Rams in free agency and he's gone to the Titans. He's an upgrade on Adam Humphries as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Also, the Titans lost Geno Smith to my Matt's Pats New England Patriots. And Josh Reynolds last year put up 65, 6182. He has been the wide receiver 3. Van Jefferson wasn't really included. Van Jefferson has a big bump up this year. Ryan Tannehill, we know, is a good quarterback, but he hasn't have to win games throwing the ball because he had Derrick Henry to run it down their throats. But I just feel you've got Julio Jones that was traded there earlier in the season. You've got A.J. Brown. They're going to get all the man coverage, the zone coverage, and it leaves chance for Josh Reynolds to be in the position to get 70, 80 targets. And he puts up strong wide receiver 3, maybe low-end wide receiver 2 numbers. But we know he's not high on TDs, but he is very, very good at finding separation, and he can give you those couple of weeks when you need coverage for injuries or bye weeks. Rondale Moore is another guy. We know he's a very good rookie. That's the reason why he went in the second round. But he is in a battle for wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 with Christian Kirk and AJ Green. And how this plays out, I think Christian Kirk's had 2 years to really prove he's the guy. Didn't prove it. That's the reason why AJ Green came over. DeAndre Hopkins, does he want to play football again? I'm not too sure. Would there be an open door for him to come back at the Cardinals? I think there probably would. But I think Rondale Moore can be the guy to take wide receiver 2 snaps, but it's going to take half a season to get him there. But in the meantime, I think AJ Green could have a quick start, but he's going to peter out by the end of the season, especially if he has health issues. But I still think it will be very close between AJ Green and Rondale Moore. But I think Christian Kirk's probably on his last year on the roster for the Arizona Cardinals. James Conner is an intriguing guy as well. I think obviously left the Steelers in free agency, injury marred 3 seasons there. We know 2018 he put up great stats of 215, 973, and 12 touchdowns. 2020 was a bit of a disappointment. Steelers couldn't really run the ball. And I feel he's going to go into the Steelers. Obviously, into the Cardinals. They allowed Kenyon Drake to obviously leave in free agency and join the Raiders. And after 239 carries and 973 rushing yards, I think he can get the red zone touches. He can get the touchdowns. Chase Edmonds is primarily a pass catching back. But James Conner, for me, is a safe guy as long as you're realistic that he's got to be your running back 3, running back 4. But there's certain weeks he'll be good, and he's going up against the Tennessee Titans that you can run the ball on. So I think that he could have a good week, but he's a guy that could have a handful of good games, but if you pick the right games, he'll give you strong fantasy points. Anthony Ferguson is a guy, I think, obviously, he was competing with Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith didn't get many targets. He was just super productive for what he had. People also forget that Jonnu Smith had 10 receiving touchdowns since 2019, the 4th most of all active tight ends. And he vacates 65 receiving targets. So I think Anthony Ferguson has the value to be a high-end tight end 2. And I think he's a guy that's also going to get red zone opportunities. So don't make him your tight end 1, your tight end 2. But if you can stream tight ends, or you're looking for somebody for depth, or you've got a few injuries, a guy that can just cover a short-term basis, Anthony Ferguson needs to be on your radar. The LA Chargers and the Washington game's coming up. As we know, Justin Herbert was Rookie of the Year, and Mike Evans, Keenan Allen are his main go-to guys. And where I feel more confident in terms of the Chargers are a playoff team is they've got Jalen Guyton, who had a massive rookie year last year, and they drafted Joshua, and they got Joshua Palmer as well. On top of that, they've also brought in Jared Cook. So they've got plenty of options. So last year, Jalen Guyton, he's a man that can make big plays. He averaged 18 yards a catch. And Joshua Palmer at Tennessee was 15 yards a catch. And these two guys offer massive field stretching opportunities, and they're each going to have a handful of big games, and they're going to be worked into the offense, especially if Mike Williams gets injured or Keenan Allen misses time as well. So you've got to look at these guys, and if you're looking for a guy to stash on the bench, one of these two is going to be big. Jared Cook has had 22 receiving touchdowns in the last 3 years. He was ultra productive at the Saints, and he's a guy that's going to come in. I like Donald Parham, but I think Jared Cook is a guy that's going to be on waiver wires, and he's going to be one of the tight ends that's going to be picked up early, especially if there's any injuries within that position that's already thin. Duami Brown is one of these guys that's not getting the love. Curtis Samuel came over before him. We love the idea of Curtis Samuel and Scary Terry McLaurin. Curtis Samuel's gone to IR for 4 weeks. Duami Brown is going to get wide receiver 2 targets. I do not think Logan Thomas is going to get 110 targets next year. He's not going to get anywhere near what I got last year because we've got a better quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick. J.D. McKissick is another guy that has gone in some leagues, still available in others. He had 110 targets, 80 receptions. This receiving game at Washington is super exciting because you've got Gibson involved, you've got J.D. McKissick involved, you've got Terry McLaurin involved, you've got Duami Brown involved. And you've got security of a guy that if anybody goes down or they lose 1 or 2 guys, Adam Humphries was good at the Titans. He's not record breaking. He's not great for fantasy points. But if you need a guy that can get you 8 to 10 points or a guy that can get you an occasional touchdown, if you're desperate, Adam Humphries is a very reliable hand. And when he gets targets, he catches the ball. So there's plenty of options at Washington as to what you can do. And then then we get down to 2 teams, Philadelphia and the Falcons. These are 2 teams that are notoriously bad at giving up passing touchdowns, can't really defend. They've both had injuries at wide receiver position, and I think neither of these teams make the playoffs, but there's plenty of exciting players within that roster that can be good for fantasy football. Jalen Reagor, for me, has a big, big bounce back. I know, obviously, he was learning to play, he had injuries, both him and Ruggs, but I think Ruggs and Reagor, you can be safe that if you stash them on your bench and got them to wide receiver 3 or 4, even 5, if you're lucky enough in some leagues, they will have big games. And then Greg Ward's another guy. Travis Fulgham is now on the practice squad. And Greg Ward stepped up some games and finished with 79, 53, 4, 1, 9, 6. I think he's going to be involved in the game. We know he can work the middle of the field. He's not going to be super exciting every week, but if he can get 6, 7 targets in a game, he's going to get 4 or 5 receptions. So he can be solid yet again in bye weeks or injuries to cover you if you come in for a week or two and you can drop him again. But this is a guy I think that's massively underrated because he's a very, very good wide receiver. Russell Gage was my man last year, and he continues to be in 3 of my 4 teams this year as well. Russell Gage stepped up when Julio Jones missed 9 games last year. And he finished with 7 games last year, 72, 7, 8, 6, 4. Even though Kyle Pitts has come in, Kyle Pitts is lining up as a wide receiver as well. Hayden Hurst is lining up as a tight end. And they've also got Mike Davies, a pass-catching back that came over from Carolina Panthers in free agency. But I have no issue rolling Russell Gage out as a flex because I know Matt Ryan has faith in him. Hayden Hurst, as I said before, is another guy. He came over from being the backup to Mark Andrews at the Ravens for 2 years to going to the Falcons and posting 56, 5, 7, 1, 6 in 2020. He is going to, both him and Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst are both going to be on the field at the same time. Hayden Hurst is going to find separation. Russell Gage is going to find separation. These guys are going to both give you touchdowns. Make sure you're looking for them or make sure you're stashing them for depth, especially when we're going in and you're looking for bad matchups or you're looking for guys that are just going to get volume or opportunity, because Hayden Hurst, Russell Gage fit that bill. Now, Wayne Gallman, a lot of people don't know how to look at him. He deputized for Saquon Barkley last year when he went down, and he finished with 1, and obviously, as we know, stepped in and he put up strong numbers. He's going to be a guy that's he's not an RB1, but Mike Davies is an RB1. This Atlanta Falcons running back is going to situation is going to be fun because I think it works out 55-45 in terms of Mike Davies, because Mike Davies is a better pass catching back, as we know last year 70-59, 3-7-3-2, and Mike Davies had 147-6-8-2-6. So we know both these guys are going to command around 150, 160 rushing yards, and both of them can be good for 700 rushing yards. But both these guys are going to have hot games. They're going to be the hot hands. If one of them goes down, we know the guy can take over because obviously Mike Davies covered for CMC. So I just think Wayne Gallman has got to be on your radar, especially if running backs are thin in your league and you're playing 3 running backs, or you've got guys that are stashing running backs as much on the waiver wire. You've got to go early, especially people have done with Lev Bell in terms of picking him up, because we know he'll be the RB1 at the Baltimore Ravens. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars-Houston game. This is one where both teams are bad. Both teams aren't going to win many games, but they made moves in free agency and they've got exciting young players. Laviska Shenault Jr., we know, with Travis Etienne going down, is going to operate not only in the receiving game because he was involved in motion plays, but also as in the running back game as a backup to James Robinson. James Robinson will be on the passing game, so we don't know how that running game is going to look because Carlos Hyde is there as well, but how actively is he involved in the running game is something that we'll have to work out as the season goes on. But the names that I really, really like, and I know names that aren't sexy, aren't desirable, is Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay joined from the Denver Broncos, back-to-back 1,000 yards running seasons after being an undrafted rookie in 2018, 2019. 2020 was affected by turf toe, and I just think he leads this backfield. I know Mark Ingram's there. David Johnson is on a big contract. Is David Johnson really going to be doing anything? But I just think it ends up being between Philip Lindsay is the guy. Mark Ingram tailed off for the Baltimore Ravens last year, but it's going to be primarily Mark Ingram running the Philip Lindsay running the ball, and he's a guy that's been drafted in some leagues. He's still available now, but he's got to be the best available running back on waiver wires. Nico Collins comes in. Obviously, the way the Texans have gone, they trade away Randall Cobb to the Packers. and they picked up Anthony Miller from the Bears. Anthony Miller was a letdown at the Bears, and I don't see him making much of an impact for the Texans this year. And Nico Collins came over from Michigan, big play player, 17.8 yards a game. He ends up being the guy that Tyrod Taylor looks for, and he's the long-term wide receiver that they can build around. And the same with Brevin Jordan. Brevin Jordan came from the Miami Hurricanes. He's competing with Jordan Akins. Jordan Akins, obviously, and Darren Fells were originally the 1-2 tight end. They weren't greatly productive, but Jordan Brevin's a big guy, big body, can catch high balls, catches highly contested balls. And these two young rookies are the Houston Texans. They want to get them involved in the game early. And these are the guys that, for volume and opportunity alone, these are the guys can put up a couple of big weeks for you, but also be the guy that could surprise you and put up a double-digit week if Tyrod Taylor gets hot, or if they can establish the running game and they can find some separation down the field. And then we work our way on to the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers. Now, yet again, two backup running backs that have changed teams, that have got plenty of potential, but could this be really where they find their feet and have a couple of 3 or 4 strong years at the team? Tevin Coleman's gone to the Jets. His whole career has been injury plagued. And the 2019 season for him was probably his best in his career. And that was 137.5546. And he's posted 23 rushing touchdowns between 2016 and 2020, but never been healthy enough to sustain long-term on the field. And I think at the Jets, they're going to a 3-man committee, and they're going with T.Y. Johnson, Tevin Coleman, and they're also going with Michael Carter. And I think of all three, because Tevin Coleman offers pass-catching ability, he will be the guy that will see most of those snaps and most of the field. And he's had 500 rushing yards and 250 receiving yards in five of his seasons as a professional. And he's averaged that between 2016 and 2019. So be careful with this guy, because he's going to go, the moment the Jets, I know Bell struggled to run the ball in the offensive line, but they're going to involve him in the passing game. And this is a guy that's going to have a hot couple of weeks. And this is a guy you want on your team stashed away as running back 4. Royce Freeman got cut by the Broncos. And this guy, yet again, in 2019, that was his best season. 2020 was rarely used because it was Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. But many believed that Royce Freeman in preseason would establish a game, but primarily as a pass-catching back. Now he's with the Panthers. I think he takes away touches from Chuba Hubbard. And in terms of the pass patching game, he's 297, 11878, and rushing the ball rushing the ball 297, 1878, and receiving wise, he's 83, 69, 4091. So we know that when it comes to the Carolina Panthers, they don't want CMC shouldering a massive load, just like the Giants don't want Barkley to shoulder a load heavy on early on into the season. So we know that Royce Freeman will be there. He'll be coming onto the field to replace CMC. So he could be getting 4 or 5 receiving targets and give you low-end RB4 numbers. Seattle Seahawks have taken on the Indianapolis Colts. Nyheim Hines, for me, is gone in 80% of leagues, but 10 to 12-man leagues, he might still be there on the waiver wire, but he's not going to be there after this week. We know that T.Y. Hilton's on IR, Michael Pittman's underwhelmed, Paris Campbell can't stay fit, Michael Strachan is a rookie, and we know, obviously, Jake Doyle is injured, and Mo Ali Cox will see targets as well, as he's primarily tight end 2, but he's going to see targets with Carson Wentz starting. Nyheim Hines has had 250 receiving targets and produced 1,270 receiving yards since 2018. This guy is going to be hot. He's number 2 on the RB charts, and he's going to be just pass catching. And he's going to be the next Austin Eckler. And we picked Austin Eckler in drafts because we know what he can do passing the ball out the backfield. And that's what is going to happen. Zach Pascal, massive big play potential, 14.4 yards per catch, and 10 receiving touchdowns in the last 2 seasons. This is a guy that's available in most leagues. This is a guy, people are stashing Nelson Aguilar, Gabriel Davies, Jason Guyton, Joshua Palmer. Add Zach Pascal to that list. Gerald Everett moved over from the LA Rams. His ceiling as a tight end was heavily constricted by the fact he was sharing targets with Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee is nothing exciting, but he never got over 40 receptions because of Tyler Higbee. He goes to a Seattle Seahawks team where Will Disley is his biggest target, and Will Disley has an injury-plagued NFL career so far. I don't see that changing, but Gerald Everett could see 75, 80 receiving targets this year, and he's a guy that's available on most waiver wires. And we know that he got, we're looking at 60-50, 60-60 when he was at the LA Rams. I don't know if Will Disley sees over 40 receiving targets. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers and Buffalo Bills both got strong defenses. Gabriel Davis has either been drafted as your last pick, or he's a guy that people are waiting to see how Emmanuel Sanders plays out. He's been to the 49ers, played well, went to the Saints, played well, cut because of cap issues. But I think at the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, Emmanuel Sanders can be strong, but still, Gabriel Davis is the guy that has the bigger TD upside because he's going to absolutely blow past DBs if he breaks on the second and third level of the field. And then what the player for me that I think another tight end, Titans don't get the love or the respect, you've got to look at Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron, 2018, kind of blew the doors off with 13 touchdowns for the Colts, then disappointed 2019, joined the Steelers last year in his first season, and he had 91 targets and 5 TDs. James Washington's situation, I think, obviously, he's been phased out of the play. So I just think Eric Ebron, there is no doubt with Big Ben, he got over 30 touchdowns last year. He's going to get 35 to 40 passing touchdowns this year. Eric Ebron has got to be on rosters as a tight end 2 or tight end 3, depending on how strong your tight end 1 is and if you're streaming every week. And then the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants. We talk about Courtland Sutton coming back. He is a 1,000-yard receiver. We talk about Jerry Jeudy being one of the best route runners in the league. Tim Patrick stepped up when Courtland Sutton went down. He was 51, 7, 4, 2, and 7. Teddy Bridgewater is a better QB. He throws better balls, and he's more efficient. Tim Patrick will be involved in this offense. And to say 650, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns isn't too unrealistic. And Noah Fant, we know, is going to be a top tight end. But defense is going to look to play Noah Fant because he gets heavy targets. They want to go and man mark Courtland Sutton to know how dangerous he is. We know Jerry Jeudy has got strong routes. So free safety, strong safety, and watch him. Watch Tim Patrick get open and watch him have games where he has 8 or 9 targets and 6 receptions. And he could have 50 or 60 receiving yards in games as well. This is a guy, the right matchup, the right game, is brilliant as a flex player. Devontae Booker has come over from the Raiders. He sat behind Josh Jacobs, which is a cowbell. And he's gone to the Giants. And this works in the short term for him because, yet again, CMC and Barkley, it would be an idiotic move to go and put them into their old workload early on into the season. So I think they're going to slowly, the first 6 weeks, put Barkley in, increase his workload, which means Devontae Booker could see a good workload for the first half of the season. And if he's efficient, could continue to be heavily involved in the pass catching, in the running game, especially because Saquon Barkley is going to be used in the passing game because we know Kenny Galladay's had soft tissue issues. Darius Slayton doesn't impress every week. Sterling Shepard is a perfect trade candidate. And we know that Evan Ingram drops balls and also had injuries as well. So will he see the field every week? But I just think Devontae Booker is one of these guys. He's sitting there. A lot of people in a lot of leagues won't have picked him up. And last year was 93, 4, 2, 3, and 30. And I think it becomes the Gus Edwards, where he sees 130, 140 rushing attempts, and could he be 607 rushing yards? No problem. So make sure he's another guy, running back 3, running back 4, and he's a guy you need to stash on your bench just in case, especially if Barkley picks an injury up and has to miss a couple of weeks. And then for me, I'm not too enamored with the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers outside Tyreek Hill. Yes, DeMarcus Robinson will have 2 or 3 good weeks. Mecole Hardman needs to show consistency for me. We know Travis Kelce will be pretty much outside Travis Kelce, the top guy to go for. Noah Gray had some good games in pre-season. But where in this game, where I see the value, especially if OBJ, presently questionable with a knee injury, doesn't play, is Donovan Peoples-Jones. 21 yards per catch last year. Rashard Higgins hasn't produced over 700 receiving yards in the season since 2016. So this is a guy that he likes. This is a guy that I think that has a massive uptake. And for him to have 45, 50 receptions and 70, 75 targets isn't unrealistic. Austin Hooper came over from the Atlanta Falcons in 2020. His 2020 season for the Browns wasn't great. And at 46, 4 through 5, 4. But if you look at his Falcons production 2017, 2019, 195, 1978, and 13 TDs. If they can get involved in the passing game, which is what Stefanski wants to do, suddenly Austin Hooper becomes a great low-end TE1, high-end TE2. So this is a guy you need to watch. If he's not on your roster and you are streaming every week, make sure him and Gerald Everett are 2 guys you're looking for. Nelson Agholor for the New England Patriots. Now, I'm a Pats fan. I look at this as it's a crapshoot as to the matchup and the game script. But Nelson Agholor at the Raiders last year had 18.7 yards per catch and 8 TDs. He comes into a New England Patriots where Jacoby Myers plays the Julian Edelman role, but has low TD upside. We've got Kendrick Bourne came over from the 49ers. Yet again, 59 receptions. Is he going to set the world light every week? No. Is he going to have games where he's going to be good? Yes. But Nelson Agholor is the guy, I think, for me, that's like to have TD upside every week because of his burner speed and his ability to find separation down the field. And that's who Mac Jones looked for in camp, and that's who I'll look for in the games. Mike Gesicki is the blanket for Dolphins QBs the last 3 years. And he had 85 receiving targets last year and 89 the previous year before that as well. So if Tua is the starting QB, expect Gesicki to be getting, yet again, we know that Devontae Parker has been hit or miss. We had a good 2018, good 2019. 2020, we expected him to be even better, and he wasn't. Jalen Waddle's got an ankle injury. Will Fuller misses weeks, plus he's suspended for the first couple of weeks from the failed drug test in 2020. And we know that Preston Williams, yet again, bust or nothing. Jakeem Grant hasn't quite stepped up. And is Jakeem Grant going to be on the roster next year? Probably not. So Mike Gesicki, yet again, is a high-end TE2, low-end TE1. And then, obviously, the last game for me where there are players where I think can make an instant impact is the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders. Kenyon Drake came over from the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not a big fan of his, and I think his value is diminished in the running game, but he's going to line up as an inside receiver, and we know the Raiders have struggled with injuries. If Henry Ruggs can step up, the other options they've got is Hunter Renfrow. We know that has been quietly productive in the last 2 years, and he's posted 105, 12616, and we know Derek Carr will look for him in games. He's available in drafts, but unless you're carrying 4 or 5 wide receivers, this guy will be on the waivers. But if you need a guy to stash, if Ruggs goes down or if Waller misses games, that's where Derek Carr is going to look. And then the other wide receiver I want to finish on is Sammy Watkins. We didn't like him at the Chiefs. We know because of his injuries, soft tissue issues, he couldn't stay healthy. If he can get back to 2019 numbers, then we're looking at a guy that can put up 750 to 800 receiving yards. And we know the Ravens had the worst receiving core in the NFL last year. Rashad Bateman was a great hope, starts an IR. Tylan Wallace, massive play potential, but he's going to be worked into the roster. Devin Duvernay, I think, is a guy that's going to see targets now. Marquise Brown, is he the guy they drafted 2019? He's not. Is he? We know he's related to Antonio Brown. Is he going to be as good as Antonio Brown, or is he going to put up stats on Antonio Brown? No. So Devin Duvernay and Sammy Watkins are two players that I really, really like in terms of being available. But with Lamar Jackson having to throw the ball more because unfortunately, they've lost J.K. Dobbins, they lost Justice Hill, and they lost Gus Edwards to season and injuries. They've rebuilt this running back room. So now they're going with Lev Bell, who's going to be the main guy, Devontae Freeman, and Latavius Murray. That's going to take a couple of weeks to work its way in. Tyson Williams, I know we get the hype, I know everyone likes him, but let's be honest. The moment these guys establish themselves, he's a forgotten man. You've got 1 or 2 good weeks out of him, and that's it. And I don't see him being super efficient against the Raiders anyway. I just think in the end, Lamar Jackson's going to have to run the ball, or he's going to have to toss the ball. Mark Andrews works out well for that. But like I say, Devin Duvernay and Sammy Watkins are 2 players that are going to benefit this early on into the season. Thanks so much for your time. And obviously, I'll be giving advice on player, roster depth, key matchups. But I just want to give you guys some players to look out for, especially in deep leagues that will be available on waiver wires. And guys you need to be putting on your bench if you've got interchangeable positions at tight end, running back, or wide receiver. But thank you much, guys. Have a great day.